just have a little job here to do for a friend. Excuse me. Just clipping on a little extra sound system. Okay, it's very nice to be here. Is everybody here from Philadelphia or environs or from further afield?
New York.
New York? Right. You haven't, I mean, I don't know how much of Blake 7 you've seen. All of it? What, all 4 series? Right. I want to see who's really honest here. I want the people that haven't seen the whole of it to put their hands up. There's quite a lot of people put their hands up. Thank you. I'd like those who've never seen Blake 7 to put their hands up, please. Now, come on, there must be some. Right, 1 there, 2. Come on, any more? 3, 4. Any more? 4? Anyone else? 5, little one there. Right. Little David hasn't seen it. Avon? Avon? Oh, Avon! Will you bring him up here? Will you bring him up here? I don't know if you can all see Avon.
Have you anything to say? Have you anything to say?
Oh, he's looking at the mic, doesn't know what to think of it. Well, I'm delighted to meet Avon, and I look forward to telling Paul. Oh, I'd love that picture to give Paul. Right, okay. Right, now, what do I say? I've never been to Philadelphia before. I had a little stroll round this morning. I would quite like to have walked longer, but it got too hot. But I'm looking forward to maybe looking at the more historic sides of it, like some of the historic houses and things, because obviously it's a very important part of your history, Philadelphia. Should I go to Fairmount Park? I'm wondering whether to go there. Yeah. Yes? Yes. Take the trolley bus out. I'll try and do that before we leave. Sorry? Oh. Right. I've been to the States, I can't really, let me just think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times now. I've been to, first of all, was to Arizona with my drama school, which was around the time of the Beatles first came to note, and the young actors in our company got suitably mobbed with their bits of their ties chopped off, their hair chopped off. I mean, us girls were sort of left out of it all, but, you know, that's the way it was. And then I came twice with the Royal Shakespeare Company. We went to New York, and on the first occasion we went down to Denver and Omaha. I liked Omaha. I hear Omaha has a sort of reputation, does it not? Sort of like nowhere. We have a place near London called Neasden, spelled Neasden, and I was given to understand that's rather like Omaha. But we really liked Omaha. We really, really enjoyed ourselves there. Then I came to Florida, to Omnicon in January. Then the weekend in New York, which blew my mind. I mean, I never traveled this far for a weekend. And I mean, I got back to London off the subway, and I tell you, I was so tired. I couldn't hardly believe I'd been here and gone all the way back. But I'm not so jet-lagged this time. I seem to have slept very well last night. And actually, now I'm talking about it, things starting to take on a complete air of unreality. I can't suddenly believe I am standing in front of everybody here. Anyway, what I'd like to do is, if anyone has any questions, and if you don't, I'd look pretty silly now, and I just have to say goodbye and thanks very much. I'd be delighted to ask them. So please, could we have somebody? Right, lady there.
Which of the Blake 7 episodes was your favorite?
My favorite episodes, well, my favorite episodes tended to be the ones where I had, you know, quite a bit to do in. Sarcophagus I enjoyed very much because I had the opportunity to do 2 characters, and as actors we like to, you know, do lots of different things, be lots of different characters, otherwise we wouldn't want to be actors. Children of Aaron I enjoyed because I liked making the sister of Callie a drip. And I just tried to see how drippy I could make her. And then you'd certainly, hopefully, be able to tell the difference between the two, because I tried not to make Callie a drip. Episodes, I think, I enjoyed doing the episode with Colin Baker simply because he was so funny. It just made me laugh so much. So I think that's about it. But other than that, I enjoyed doing all the episodes, really, because we had such a good time on it.
Why did you leave the show before it officially ended?
I left the show before it officially ended because when I did the series 1, it was in our contracts that we did 2 series, which I would have done in any case, but it was not something we could choose to do or not to do. But when I went into the 3rd series, which was the 3rd year running that Blake 7 was a part of my life, halfway through it, I have to admit I just got restless. Basically, I got a bit bored with the limitations that Blake 7 had within it, I mean, in terms of acting opportunities. And so I felt very strongly about it and determined that that had to be it. Also, there was the feeling that to do 3 series is fine, but you get into a fairly dangerous area if you do 4, 5, 6 series in terms of employment later on. So that was also in my mind. And knowing that I couldn't feel fully committed to a 4th, it was obviously the best thing not to do it. And I must admit I was very uncompromising about that, because it was suggested I do 3 or 4 episodes or 1 episode, but I said no, nothing, which is why there was obviously this very unsatisfactory Callie death, which I take full responsibility for. If I'd realised I'd be asked so many questions about it at a later time, years later, I might have thought twice, but that's the answer. Another question?
I had heard, I don't know if this is correct or not, you had an interest in direction. Have you pursued that?
I am interested in direction, but I haven't directed anything. I may yet. Sally's certainly been directing. Maybe you got us both a bit confused. But I've certainly always been interested in directing, simply because one gets frustrated over the years. No, only in a very peripheral way.
From your whole time on the series, what was your favorite line that you said?
Gosh, I really should have the answer to that. I'm going to have to do some research. Was there a line you remember that you think should have been my favorite line?
No, I'm just wondering.
Does anyone have any recall of a line they think ought to have been my favorite line?
When you're talking to Bill when he went to Space City, he wanted a necklace of his teeth.
Right. You're going to live forever or die trying, right? Any others? Right. Sorry. Yeah.
Could you speak a bit about your training as an actress and roles you played on stage or my mother film?
I talk a bit about my training for acting and roles I'd played on stage or like to have played. I went to drama school at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. It was a pretty tough training when I think back, because we were told as soon as we entered there that this was really, we had entered the profession already. I mean, in retrospect, I think that that's not really the ideal sort of training setup. As soon as you go there, it's going to be like the business. And in fact, it was true, it was like that, because it meant that people with potential that wasn't necessarily fulfilling itself or appeared to be fulfilling itself at the time didn't have the opportunities they should have. And those that were sort of shining and didn't need that kind of encouragement or confidence that a training would give them were given the star roles. I mean, I think this is rubbish when you're actually talking about a training, but that's the way it was at RADA when I was there. And subsequently, one's noted that people who appeared to be sort of considered by the drama school as sort of middle range or small part players have since you know, done something quite else. But I was lucky in that I was considered to be worthy of leading roles, and I enjoyed myself very much so, although at times it was a strain because the average age of our class was 24 and I was 18, so that did have a certain, so some of the older people in it were in their 30s in the actual class I was in. But yes, it's a time I'm glad passed, because in fact when one got out into the business it felt less pressurized than it actually had at drama school, where you were faced every day with the competition. Wasn't really the greatest time of my life. But since then I did a lot of theatre work. A lot of my work had been in theatre, with odd tellies before doing Blake 7. I did quite a lot of classic roles. I played St. Joan, did a lot of Shakespeare, Desdemona, Juliet, Playboy of the Western World, Pigeen, that was all in rep. And at the RSC, played Queen Isabel in Richard II, Phoebe in As You Like It. So I had quite a strong classical background. And then in later years, got more involved in new plays, like working at the Royal Court in London that does a variety of plays, and they've had some transfers here to Joseph Papp with the Carol Churchill play, Top Girls, and other things prior to that. And I've enjoyed doing new plays because I like feeling that I'm the first person to have played that role. I also like seeing the book with the cast list and my name in it and the date. Any other questions?
Since you didn't die on screen, a lot of people hope that the series could be revived, especially since it's become popular overseas. Would you play it again if it was offered to you? And just in case, do you have any information about that kind of thing?
Don't know any information about that. My intuition tells me it's very unlikely that it's likely to be revived. I mean, I don't think so somehow. But if it was offered to me again, I would consider a series.
Do you have a desire to do American television, and if so, which show would you like to appear on?
Well, quite frankly, from the magazine articles I read about what actors earn if they're doing a large soap in this country, absolutely yes. Because the BBC and ITV or anything to go by, I mean, there's just no comparison. So yes, all the way. And if it was, what would it be? You see, I love Cagney and Lacey. I'd like to be in a series like that. I think it would be something along those lines.
If you had been able to design the scene in which Callie did die, how would you have done it?
I was able to design the scene in which Callie did die. Well, she did die.
Well, yes,
but how would I have done it?
Yes, how would you have played it if you had had the opportunity to do anything you wanted?
Well, if I had known that I was going to say no when I did say no, and that they'd already written the series for me before I even said anything, they assumed that I was going to do a full series, what would I have had happening? Yes, I'd certainly have had her dying a fairly ghastly death. Bow and arrow. Or maybe just wading out to sea, distraught or under the influence of some alien sending me a message. Walk out. Yeah, I think that's about as far as my imagination can go at the moment. I see both of them as possibly typical of what we might expect to happen to Callie.
If you could have had Callie go in any direction that you wanted, what would you have done? I mean, she was real strong in the beginning then.
Yes, well, I wouldn't have kept it along those lines because she went all weedy, and the telepathy seemed to be the thing that grabbed the script writers' imaginations to the point of exhaustion, really. And I thought, oh, not another script where I go. I mean, it was pressing. Oh, here we go again. So, yes, I would have liked to have kept her more aggressive, impulsive. Yeah, because I just like action. I mean, one would like to be in westerns, so it's that area that attracted me to Blake 7, just the action side of it.
If you were to have her get involved with anybody, who would you have chosen?
If I'd had to get involved with anybody, who would I have chosen?
Or which one?
It's not something I spent a lot of time thinking about. Who would I have chosen? Well, who do you think? Not Avon, surely. No. But I suppose Avon would have been the obvious choice. And we did have a few scenes together, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah. No, probably not. Probably Colin Baker, actually. Any more questions?
Given the unlimited potential of the series, why do the women seem to have so little to do in general?
Would you like to ask the male scriptwriters? Most of them were men. I think actually I'd like to think that if Blake 7 was starting being made now, it would be different. And I honestly think it probably would have been. Because we've had series like Cagney and Lacey and our Juliet Bravo, which you probably haven't had here, which has featured a female star in it, seen to be doing things. You should be able to answer that question better than me.
I think the American TV is only very recently getting around to having good, strong women lead some of the shows on TV. Could you contrast American TV with British TV in this respect?
I think we're trying hard, but we lag behind. There's no doubt about that. And I have to say, I found myself after visiting here in January, having not been in the States for 11 years, I found myself talking about the confidence of the women here, which is very different to us in Britain, even now. There was just difficult to actually put in words, but there is a very different feeling. Women do here seem to have a greater self-assurance, which we have yet to feel. And I think we do seem to lag behind, and of course that's going to be reflected in television, drama, whatever. I mean, we're getting there, but it's taking time. I think actually that she took over what was written originally for Callie. Later anyway. I wouldn't know, but as far as I understood it, a lot of the episodes were sort of adapted to accommodate Sulin after I left the series. Oh, somebody else who hasn't had a question.
Did you have any input at all in the writing of the episodes? Were you able to talk at all, or were any of your colleagues?
Well, the only talking we did was, having been presented with a written script, we fed in where we felt things were inappropriate, or lines were not like the character was said, etc. Because certainly after 2 series, we thought we knew more than anyone. Your script editors, directors, producers, we really did. So we fed that in where we could, and where we recognized continuity wasn't right in episodes where something had happened that, somebody said didn't happen, and 3 episodes before. So we, again, were on the ball when it came to things like that. I kept in touch initially with Michael. We all kept in touch initially, but you know how these things sort of fade as time goes by. But Sally and I have kept in touch, and I somehow feel we probably will go on doing so. So I see her certainly intermittently. In fact, I was talking to her on the phone the other day because we were talking about getting together something to do at Scorpio.
Surprised that you said that the scriptwriters wrote you in as a lead character, you and Jenna, as sort of, open those characters. When Britain is known for having a woman prime minister, you elected 3 times, and one time elected 3 times.
But is there some comparison between Jenna and Callie and Mrs. Thatcher? I'm sorry, I don't want to get into this. I feel very strongly about this whole thing, and I don't like political discussions amongst friends. Could we please just forget that? Any other questions?
You left at the end of the 3rd season, and that was also the end of The Liberator. If you had stayed a 4th year, would you have missed The Liberator?
Well, I suppose I would have missed it in that we got so adept. I mean, we really knew that set, even as it crumbled round our ears and rattled and was repainted and bolted on again. I mean, it was an old friend. But I have to say that when it blew up, I mean, it was a day of great excitement. We all sort of had to rush down there and watch it. And at that time, quite pleased to see it go. But it would have taken a bit of getting used to working on a new set. But I think the directors were pleased. I mean, it was a difficult set to actually work on for them. I know. I agree with you. It did. Until it started falling apart, rattling. And you had to make a point of saying, look, please, I've got to have something soft on these shoes, because otherwise it's down this hollow cardboard box.
When Peter Tottenham did the voices for Aurak and Slave and Zen, were those sounds put in before, during, or after the shooting of the episode?
Do you know, I can't remember. During. He sat in his box. You've almost forgot he was there. His little box with these little velvet black curtains, all, muffled in to get the sound right, and a little crate down there, ginger ale, and you'd sort of forget he was there, actually. Aurak, and Zen, and then you suddenly think, oh, of course, it's Peter, really, and he's in the corner there. So it happened. And I mean, he'd drift in, we'd be all struggling away with this new script, which was probably making nonsense, and we'd be tearing our hair, and then suddenly, after a week of that, Peter would stroll in, when we'd do a run-through and do his lines, and then he'd wander into his little black box on recording day. But, yeah, it was during the show.
Pick your own clothes, and how did you run in this long?
Did I run in those long things?
Yes.
Well, they did have slits up the middle, usually. I think I insisted on that. And the flat hush puppies. Which I got really upset about, because, in fact, it was series 2, my hair suddenly went short, wasn't it? I was really unhappy. I think I was unhappy anyway. And then somebody talked me into having my hair cut short, and I really hated that, and I was completely demoralized. And then we went to the costume fittings, and these elaborate sort of drifty things came out, and you thought, well, this is imaginative, this is something different, maybe this will be all right. And then you were given these very high heels along with these long dresses, and that's where I put my foot down, literally. And I said, look, we're action. I mean, we do the business. I must have flat shoes. I mean, I can't go around in a long dress like this. So I got these horrible flat hush puppies. And there was all this green and this short hair, and the worst day on that second series was when I passed some of the technicians, and as I say, I wasn't feeling very confident anyway. I mean, I really wasn't. In fact, one day I practically ruined continuity by taking the scissors to my hair and then going into the filming the next day to see them all going, look at her hair. And I had been weeping. I hated it so much. And then after that, I was walking around recording day in these green tights, these horrible olive green tights, and this white thing, and this short hair, and these great flat puppies, to hear 2 of the technicians say, oh, look, there goes olive oil. I don't know how I managed to perform that that day, I can't tell you. Really. In fact, I told this story in New York. But actually, I've never told anyone else about it at the time. I never mentioned it. It was a little secret. I thought, olive oil. I know I've got a long neck, but my son tells me I've got a long neck, but I could see it all. Anyway, another question. Well, I was very excited when I read that script. It had this extraordinary dimension, this atmosphere that it carried with it. I have to say I was ultimately disappointed by the final product, because reading the script, it really caught my imagination. And I suppose it's a bit like, you know, when you read the book and then go and see the movie, you can be disappointed. And in my head, you know, I'd seen it as how I thought it should be. And then when I finally saw it, it was somehow, didn't quite have that atmosphere of mystery. Something wasn't there that if I was directing it, I would have put in there, I'm sure. So it was magical script, really. And one didn't feel that, quite that magic. Could have been much better. Potentially, it was all there. Do you think that? Do you think, or...
What are you talking about?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Oh, I'm sorry, sarcophagus.
I followed. I followed.
You thought what?
I followed everything you said.
Oh, fine. No, they didn't know what the... Yes, I know. It was because I tried to repeat the question usually, so everyone does know what I'm talking about. But I forgot that. Oh, no, somebody else who hasn't had a question.
Right here. So there's going to be a lot of intrigue and suspense in grade 7. Why wasn't there, or did there seem to be a lot of sexual innuendo in this? It seems to be a lot of violence. Any reason for that? There seems to be a lot of violence and intrigue and interfighting between the different characters. But besides a few times, there didn't seem to be very much male-female interaction on a personal level. Any reason for that? I mean, it seems to be very above board. You don't see anyone winking at each other, you know, or it seems to be very, nothing underneath. You know, there seems to be a lot of violence about it. Any reason for that?
No, well, I mean, I just don't know how to answer that question. I mean, I tend to think that if there'd been more sort of intrigue, emotional intrigue, if you like, on The Liberator, I can't help thinking that somehow that would have taken over the whole series. That we would have got terribly interested in that, and it'd be like a soap opera, really, and not something to do with what's happening on The Liberator and the world outside. I think it would all have become quite, well, very incestuous, I would have thought, The Liberator. I mean, there's only so many variations, aren't there, once you've started. How did I get the role of Callie in the first place? I was performing in a play, a new play, at the Royal Court, which is a subsidised theatre, not like the commercial West End, but in Chelsea. And David Jackson was also in that play with me, called Fair Slaughter, with John Thor and Max Wall. I don't know if any of you know of them. And David Maloney, the producer, came to see that play and subsequently asked David and I to go up and be interviewed for the series. That's obviously a lady that knows the answer, isn't it? Yes. Well, my first meeting with Michael Keating, was when we were both extremely small, well, smaller than we are now, and we both went to a sort of junior drama class for 21 to sort of 12-year-olds, 21-year-olds, at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in Blackfriars, and we'd trudge up there for 10 o'clock. I used to get on a little train from South London. I mean, it was the high point of the week, and there we would rehearse over a period of 3 months at least a show, which we eventually did, and of course our parents came to see, told us we were good and everything. And there was it was a class of about 20. There were at least 15 girls and about 5 boys, of which Michael Keating was one of the smaller ones. And I can clearly remember Michael Keating in short grey flannel trousers and long grey socks. And we worked together there for, I think I belonged to this class for about 2-3 years, up until I was about 15. And then, the truth is, I never saw Michael again until 1970, where was it, end of 77, when we got together to do the series. And he didn't look at all different. Well, I don't know about his knees, because I don't think I've seen him since, but certainly his face, I recognise him anyway. Who had the best sense of humour on the set? Paul has his own very individual sense of humour. Sally certainly has hers. Michael, his. Very difficult question, actually. I mean, we had so many giggles on that. I mean, we had the bad times as well, but I mean, they were very few and far between. No, I'm not going to put myself on the line and answer that question, because actually I really don't know the answer. I think it was just, you know, we did have lots of laughs all together. Somebody who hasn't asked a question.
Do others from the cast go about the conventions also and speak, or just a couple of you, just something that you do?
No. We get invited. So that's your answer. I noticed the chaps got invited rather earlier than the girls. Maybe I'm being oversensitive, but I did notice that.
Paul told us a story about when they were doing a film on location at a nuclear power plant. And do you have any funny stories about location shots?
You see, this is where I start to feel really inadequate, because I just don't have this unique memory that both Paul and Michael have. I mean, a lot of it has gone into a haze. I mean, it may be because I had a young son that I was sort of running, a fairly new young son that I was running home to and looking after. I don't know, or else the truth is I just don't have a very good memory. So, I mean, the nuclear power station one, I don't know what story you know, but I just remember it was very frightening working up there, especially with a great big special effects explosion and being told you're working on the power cap. I mean, I don't know what the power cap is, except I was told that all the rods are underneath. And I hated it there. And not only that, there were these black bands of plastic cordon, sort of cordoning off sort of what looked like bits of rubble, boxes, with these signs meaning this is radioactive on it. And apparently one of the technicians just sat on it. He didn't even notice. And there was the terrible day when we had to go into this room where you stood on this machine and it registered whether you were radioactive or not. And then you had this Geiger counter. You were supposed to run down yourself and up to sort of check. And poor Sally one day, she got on there and the whole thing's going, and she's going, I'm radioactive, look! And it's going, this little indicator's going up. And the guys that worked there, I mean, they were just so cool and laid back. I mean, I don't know whether they were there at all, but I remember this one going up saying, oh, well, that's just, that must be just background. It's all right. I mean, we don't know whether it was all right to this day. But it was frightening when that special effects, that explosion went. I suppose because we were all a bit tense working there anyway. And then this almighty explosion, which we didn't expect to be so great, and we were all running close to it. It was quite frightening. In fact, when I accepted the third series, I actually got it written into my contract that, yes, I would do a third series, but I didn't want to, and I would not work in a nuclear power station. But by that time, I think the powers that be had decided that was not the place to do location work anyway. Also, another thing, they gave us a dispensation, a special kind dispensation, which was that we could have our sandwiches and tea up there on the power cap nobody who was employed at the nuclear power station was allowed to eat and drink on the premises. But we were allowed to. Weren't they sweet? I mean, I clued onto this. I thought, I'm not touching a sandwich up here or having a cup of tea. They all were, but I thought, no, so you really gonna? Yes, they were. I mean, I just thought they were, you know, stupid. Anyway, I was glad we never went back there.
You worked on the Liberator set for 3 years, and we always saw it from the same angle. I just want to know, did it look as good from the back coming out as from the front looking in?
The what? The set?
The set of Liberator.
Did it look, the back coming out?
Like,
do you mean behind it?
Yeah, behind it. What does it look like there? Compared to the front.
Well, there were bits of, do you mean the bit that you're never supposed to see?
Yeah, right.
The bit that you're never supposed to see. Well, there were these large bits of wooden rods at the back, sort of supporting it. Every now and then, sort of odd, rude message on the back. There were these large, you know what stage weights are like, those large things, there were a lot of those. I mean, you wouldn't recognize it. It would not photograph well. You would be in for a big disappointment.
How large was that set? The Liberator, the whole show. Was it like 2 rooms, 3 rooms?
Depends on the size of your rooms, but I guess,
Was it connected?
say I'm in my little seat at the back. Do you remember my seat at the back on the right-hand side? Yeah. At the beginning I sat there, I wasn't very pleased. I thought, well, I'm going to stay here all the time, am I? Right. So the cameras could never get up there very well. This is it. Right. Colin, would you do me a big favour? My friend Colin here will stand up. Would you, Colin? Now, you see? Now, move about. Yes. Right. Okay. My seat at the back, Colin there, that was from my seat to the front, if you can think whatever the front was, but that was the stage. So it's quite big, really, wasn't it? Thank you, Colin. Give him a hand.
First, other than stirring up the imagination of the audience, is there any reason to have Callie read Quake to you before she died?
Do you know, I wonder, I mean, I don't know what the answer to this is. I think I rationalized it, because I do like to rationalize these things, because, you know, I'm an intelligent actress, so, you know, you think wide. And it was just recalling a time past, you know, like one's life going before you as you die, and Blake being the beginning of it all. Oh, right. Yes. What was the rationalization between Callie screaming Blake as she died after all the past, the history of it? So that's how I rationalized it, that it was to do with some, you know, your life going before you and to things gone by. But I'm sure the script writers, they were all probably still feeling a little nervous about having killed off Blake and having a series called Blake 7 without Blake. Maybe they just thought that would be a good move, you know.
Was that even your voice screaming Blake, or was it someone else trying to impersonate you?
Oh, no. No, it was me. I definitely went in and did the voice. And I get these odd little residuals for a tiny little fee for 4th series. I mean, really minuscule. And I think, oh, yes, that was that voice day. How much time did we have between first reading of the script and recording? What we did was what's called a 10-day turnaround. So what happened was, within that 10 days, we were usually, 2 or 3 of us, were usually doing filmed location work for the series, the episode yet to come. So what happened was, we'd start rehearsing on day 1. We'd probably lose, you know, maybe Paul or Michael for 2 days off on location. So we'd sort of work as well as we could without them for those 2 days, 3 days. They'd come back 4th, 5th, 6th day. We'd get it going again, and then we'd record 8th, 9th, 10th day. Right.
We have time for just one more question.
Right. Can I make it just 2? Just
Sure.
2? Yeah.
Since you got the part of Callie, and Callie was a telepath, did you, before
before or after, at any time, as Dan Chappell, become interested in the forms of ESP?
Oh, well, I had been interested in telepathy for some time. I believe in telepathy. I just think you can't argue against it. It does exist. And as a kid at school, I used to experiment. We used to do telepathic experiments. So I believed in telepathy.
What kind of work are you doing now?
What kind of well, I'm going back to start two television jobs. One is with Jim Henson, who does the Muppets, who's doing a very, very interesting project. It's a Grimm's 4.5-hour Grimm's fairy tale stories with puppets and with people. So I'm doing one called The Soldier and Death. And then the other thing I'm doing is 2 episodes of a series for Granada Television by Frederick Raphael. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him. Did you ever see a series called Glittering Prizes here? Yes, obviously you did. Right, one more question and then that's the very, very last. Yes? I didn't see the I didn't see the final episode, but I understand a lot of people didn't like it. And I think maybe it's rather a sad note to end on. Anyway, can we have just one more very short question, just to finish? I don't like ending like that, not being able to answer the question and being reminded at the end.
What did you think after being in the series and reading it, to all of a sudden being asked to conventions and see its popular?
Well, I wasn't. We were asked to. We went to British conventions before coming to the here. But yes, it's a great surprise. Astonishes me actually that still after all this time, it should still be a part of my life or affecting my life, and certainly such a pleasant way. That's a nice question to end on. Anyway, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your questions. Thank you.